Pizza delivery drivers of Reddit. What was the most fucked up place you've ever stopped at? I was delivering chicken, KFC, not pizza, but my worst stop was pathetic, really. I knock on the door, I hear a kid yell I got it, he opens the door, and runs up the stairs yelling to his friends the chicken asshole's here. The chicken asshole's here. After which a crowd of about 8 preteens at the top of the stairs start throwing change down the stairs at me to pay for the delivery. I asked if they could hand me the money, they laugh and just throw the quarters/dimes/etc. harder. So I picked up the bag of food, winged it up the stairs at them, it hit the wall, and I split. Told the boss what happened and if they call to complain I won't listen or apologize, I'll just quit if he brings it up. I found out later he did get a call and told them to get stuffed. Good boss. Flinging the chicken at them must have been satisfying as hell. I didn't end up delivering the pizza but the address was an abandoned house. It was around dusk and the house was so obviously uninhabited, I could see trees growing through the windows and the backside of the house was crumbling so badly I could see to the backyard from the street. The instructions were to come around back. I double-checked the address after locking my doors, called the customer a couple of times, called the store and told him what was up and why I wasn't delivering the pizza and headed out. I mean seriously, who would have been dumb enough to go to the back of that house? The neighborhood crack house is blacklisted from every pizza place in my city because drivers would get robbed on every delivery to that address. Calls pizza joint to get a pizza. Get ready to rob delivery driver. Pizza joint sends cops instead. So while I was in undergrad, I worked as a pizza delivery driver. I had a delivery to a dodgy part of town with a delicious pie. When I got within a couple miles of the residence, a local sheriff's deputy got in front of me. We made all the same turns. Then as we got closer, another got in front of him and one behind me. I start freaking out a bit as I'd been smoking some weed, but carry on. Finally, we all get to the same residence which is totally surrounded by police in riot gear, guns drawn, all that shit. I get out with my pizza and discover the house I'm supposed to deliver to is the one with SWAT out in front. One of the officers waves me off and says, he's not gonna need that today, and they proceed to breach the door, to which I return to the car with a free pizza and get the hell out of there. They were added to our do not deliver list but I don't think we ever heard from them again. This gives me an image of a SWAT team bursting through a door and professionally sweeping a house with a pizza dude in tow. They flashbang a room and tackle the assailants shouting get on the ground while you hear in the background that'll be $21.50. You paying cash or card? Either that or a hostage situation. The cops are getting ready to breach but the FBI show up to take over the scene in classic fashion. Then a beat-up old sedan rolls up, some dude from Domino's gets out, and says hand me the megaphone. I drove to the customer's house and saw that a guy was being handcuffed by the police in the front yard. I had no idea what to do so I drove around a neighboring block a few times. When I came back, the police and handcuffed guy were gone. I didn't know if he was the customer or not so I just walked up to the door and knocked. An old couple answered and took the pizza and paid and didn't say anything about the arrest that happened on their lawn. It was in a city with extremely low crime rate as well, so it was very strange to 17-year-old me. I'm copying from a post I made over on r/tales from the Beats guy, so I apologize if my formatting is bad, but here's my pizza delivery story. One night I have a delivery to a pretty rural area. A lot of my deliveries are to rural areas, so no big deal. But tonight it's drizzling and especially dark, so I'm having trouble finding the address of the house I'm looking for. So I roll down the passenger window and use my really fucking bright flashlight, pointing it at mailboxes/trees/posts/anything that somebody might have their address on at the end of their driveway. So I'm driving along at like 5 miles an hour pointing my flashlight when the beam catches a guy wearing a black hoodie at the end of an obviously long gravel road staring directly at me. More of a glare at me, really. But whatever, could just be on the phone or something. Then it gets weirder. I finally find the address I'm looking for and pull into the drive, and hop out of the car. That's when I get the sinking feeling. No cars, no house light, boarded up windows. If you've ever been a delivery person, you know that this is the time to GTFO of there because you're about to get robbed. Right as I'm about to jump in, throw the car into reverse and nope the fuck out of there, I see a man walking across the empty field adjacent to the property towards me. Fuck. Now I'm a pretty burly, bearded dude, so I don't worry a whole lot on deliveries, but this scared the shit out of me. When he gets closer, I see him there, obviously tucking something into his waistband, what I can only assume was a gun. He then says in a thick, menacing southern accent, "I thought you was the law," I guess because of how I was scanning the addresses. I meekly point to my car topper and the pizza in my hand, and he says in the nicest voice you've ever heard, "Oh, great. Thank you so much. Have a great night." Pays me, and proceeds to walk back through the open field, in the direction of no buildings, in the rain, with his pizza. For the rest of my shift I couldn't stop whispering, "What the fuck? Strangest thing that's ever happened to me. Meth lab in the trees somewhere." Drove for a bit when things were rough. Day driving on weekdays meant there were only two of us, and we got mostly the business park lunches and the SOM pool parties, and the latchkey kids after school snacks. There was some interesting stuff we ran into. Brothels ran out of apartments, drug dens out of high-end hotels, but for the most part it was seniors answering the door in boxers or tossing flyers on doors or dealing with snotty brats. There was this one house, though, that made my heart stop every time it came up, which was thankfully rare. Call it instinct or energy or whatever, I hated that house. And because there was only two of us, and I was 20 years younger than the other guy, it was usually me. It was the only house on a single-lane road. To give you an idea of the dissonance here, the major road this little road was off of housed a new McMansion development within 1 mile, and a sleepy little 1950-style cookie-cutter suburbia development a mile in the other direction. It'd be real easy to mistake this road for an access road, especially with how heavily overgrown that area had become. Once you got on this little road, the first 20 feet or so seemed absolutely normal. It's after you turn the bend and the road turned to gravel that things went batshit. We're talking the road lined with construction worker and Smokey the Bear cutouts wrapped in barbed wire and holding model rifles. Naked store mannequins covered in paintball splatter with BB guns tied to their hands and pointed at the road. Signs every 5 or 10 feet: "No trespassing, private property, CCTV recording in progress, you are being watched." No shit, Sherlock, you aren't hiding the cameras. This continued for the next mile, while I wondered if I should be calling my fiancé and telling him I loved him, grateful that it was bright and sunny out. So I get to the gate, and call the customer, which was the most normal part of this, tell him I'm outside, only be told to not approach the house under any circumstances and do not leave the vicinity of my car. Okay, dude. You know what? I'm intimidated. I'm a 24-year-old woman a mile into the woods at some psycho's house fort with crap reception on my phone just trying to deliver a pizza. So, I get out of my car, take out the pizza bag, and lean against the side of my car and hope that I'm not making the nightly news. Out walks a guy who, I shit you not, is dressed like he walked off a MIB film set, takes his pizza and wings, tips me $5, and instructs me how to turn my car around. Would rather take the strippers 100 times over that house. Every hoarder house I ever delivered to. Honestly, I feel for those folks. There's usually a mental issue that starts it. Sometimes it's just learned behavior, either way it's still just sad to me. How many different hoarders' houses have you delivered to? What was it like? I delivered in a couple different college towns in Oregon. There's a lot of meth and poverty here, not unlike a lot of rural areas in America these days. Granted, this was decades ago, but there were a surprising amount, actually. Not like 50, but there were a few in each town. There was always that pathway leading in, never went in, and there was almost always an animal or two as well, which always bummed me out. The smell isn't always what you'd expect, more like an old thrift store book X1000 mixed with ass and animal excrement/urine. That kind of smell, it takes years of direct exposure to get used to. I'd prefer living next to a paper mill again over that. One that really blew my mind was an upscale hoarder. Everything was new and still in packages, just piled from floor to ceiling. Kids' clothes, musical instruments, tools, you name it. I've honestly seen some pretty bad houses as a building envelope inspector. Not really hoards, but just horribly disgusting and filthy environments. I don't mean to judge, but I just don't understand how folks can live that way. I once delivered to a guy living under his porch, if that counts. I drove up to the house. It's pitch black. No lights on. I look at the ticket and it says use back door. I go up the steps and no lights on. Nothing. Then I hear a voice from below me say, "Hey, down here." I look under the porch and Teresa, a small door leading into what looked like a makeshift apartment. I had to actually crouch to get to it. Gave the guy the pizza and bounced the fuck out of there. The house I used to live in had a guy living under the front porch. Definitely not a legal suite. But hey, there's a housing shortage up here in Vancouver, so you take what you can get. He lived there for 10 years before new owners bought the house and rent-evicted all of us. I looked into his place shortly before we moved and it was super weird. Huge spiderwebs, very dusty. The shower and toilet were under the stairs that lead up to the main part of the house.